Capitol Hill. Actually, John Decker as well. Busy day yesterday, our own White House correspondent. But Brad Card will give us a quick update in a moment on President Trump on his way to Capitol Hill. In fact, he's there now talking to Republicans as they try and pass this so-called big, beautiful bill. We'll talk about what's there and what people, what some of the holdouts are looking for. Also, car inspections, maybe a solution. That's been a debate in the state legislature. We're going to hear from a state senator on that. We'll update you on some of the other news talk, but let's start with the basics. Good morning on this Tuesday. Jack, Heath, J-Dog on the boards as we are coming to you from our Capitol studios here, not far from the State House. More rain ahead on Thursday. I know that's not what you want to hear with some winds, and I guess it's coming off the ocean. So Thursday and Friday into Saturday morning. The good news is, and I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist. The good news is it looks like the back half of the Memorial Day weekend is looking more sunny and dry. And we're coming to you with some additional FM signals over and up into the seacoast, up into Maine, in addition to WTSN AM and FM. And in the Lakes region, we have an additional signal, 98.3 FM HD2. And in addition to our flagship in Laconia, WEMJ, WTPL 107.7 FM. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning up into Portland, Maine, where they need more good news talk. We're filling that void happily and successfully. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. And we'll tell you our poll question in a moment. That'll be available up on X at the Pulse of an H. But we're going to go straight to Capitol Hill. Someone who knows the ins and outs there very, very well. Also, co-host of our weekly podcast, Contact Politics. And he'll tell us what's coming up. But a report live from Capitol Hill, Brad Card. Brad, good morning. Well, you just had to rub that in? Oh, you had to wait a minute. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're in the 50s here. You had to rub that in as well? All right. What's going to, the president's going to Capitol Hill, meeting with Republicans. Take it away. Yeah, interesting. Well, again, politically speaking, it's interesting. We had John McLaughlin, the President Trump's pollster, on our podcast last week, Contact Politics. He brought up this tax bill, Brad. He brought up this bill. He thinks with the midterms coming, it could be a differentiator in states like New Hampshire in the Senate race. And he praises it all about a tax cut. And you heard the president say that this morning. Goes, if we don't pass this, it's resulting in an X number tax increase on the American people. And we've seen past presidents try and splice that. Well, do we raise a one tax here and keep it down? But we'll see where it goes. Do you think in the end it will, get through for what the president wants or not? Yeah, but you also know, look at who's branding it. Who else but Trump? A big, beautiful bill. Hey, Brad, who's coming up on the contact politics this week? All right, good stuff. Thank you, Brad Card. Brad Card live in Washington. We'll see. Also, we're going to get an update. Lots happening at the state level. We had Anna Brown Citizens Count on yesterday, talking about the budget and some other stuff, but even car inspections. You'd heard stories that they were going to kind of make that a thing of the past. Maybe there's a solution. We're going to hear from a state senator, Dan Innes, on that in a moment. Live right here on the Pulse of NH. And we'll tell you our poll question before we go to a break. Before I get there, though, want to give credit to New Hampshire Journal. They did an interesting article, Damian Fisher, and this was first brought up on my show here, our show, Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of Nature, a few weeks ago. Lily Tang Williams was all over this. But in Nashua, New Hampshire, Gate City, the state's second largest city, the Pennachuck Water Board is poised to approve selling Nashua's water supply to a Chinese company. You hear all this stuff about doing business with China, the trade stuff, and there was just a piece the other night on 60 Minutes about the penetration from China into our universities and our businesses on, basically what you call not an American interest, if you will, but I think it's pronounced Nongfu Spring, is setting up operations in Nashua after spending $67 million on a building there. $67 million. But the building's location, according to the New Hampshire Journal, is adjacent to the Pennachuck watershed area, which supplies drinking water for the city. And it raises questions about where Nongfu will be getting its water. It's a the largest water bottling operation in China, buying up real estate in Nashua, New Hampshire. And you wonder if they're looking at that pond for the water. What about Nashua? And you know what's interesting? I haven't seen any big noise media coverage on this at all. The industrial lot that we're talking about was like 337,000 square feet industrial property at 80 Northwest Boulevard in Nashua for $67 million. And you heard Lily Tang Williams recently on my show talking, basically saying that one of the wealthiest businessmen in China, one of the wealthiest individuals in China, is the one who bought the land in Nashua, New Hampshire. And now Pennachuck Waterworks is having a hearing, and there's no like main other than my show here, Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H, and we're arguably the top place for your news talk in terms of morning format like this and our network of stations and our on-demand stuff all day long. But the point is, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of other media coverage on this, even out of Nashua. And this is interesting at a time when I think there's been even proposed legislation, certainly in New Hampshire. I'll ask Dan Innes about this. He'll know where before, strategic real estate, if you will, is sold to an adverse business or a foreign entity that might have it might be a adverse interest in the United States, that the real estate deal is reviewed more. This $67 million deal that for this land, these 337,000 square feet, or the industrial building in Nashua, happened, I think, towards the beginning of the new year, and there was no one talked about it. I just think it's a little bit. Let's just put it this way: it's a tad unusual, is it not, to have the one of the wealthiest people in China, and he owns one of the largest water bottling companies in China, and therefore probably the world, is buying up so much interest next to the Pennachuck, sort of the water reserve in Nashua. It's interesting because New Hampshire Governor Kelly Ayotte is a pretty famous and well-known and proud resident of Nashua. I would think that someone would be having some curiosity, but Pennachuck is having their meeting, and I don't know what's next, but we'll find out. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of NH. We'll tell you our poll question up on X in a moment. I was going to stick to the Washington stuff with our poll question up on X, J-Doc, but I'm going to go local because there's still some questioning of the local economy, mixed messages. Are we going to see a slowdown? Housing. So I guess the question is, as you look to the summer, do you think we're going to see an economic slowdown in terms of real estate and just sort of what you might call a mild recession? Do you think we're going to see a slowdown this summer in the economy, or are you optimistic? But let's just start with, do you think you will see a slowdown? And that's up on X at the Pulse of an H with the economy this summer. J Dog, let me know when you have the results. I'm trying to think of, so we're into the week here. What was yesterday? Our poll. Okay. Okay. Well, that's our question. Do you think there'll be a slowdown? I want to switch gears and I want to bring in a great newsmaker. He's one of the state senators. He's pretty sharp too on that front. And I will say this, despite partisan politics today, the people that serve in the state house, and that's real service, they don't do it for the salary or the money. They're doing it for the budget, quality of life. State Senator Dan Innes joining us. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age. Good morning, Senator. Good. Now I know you're in that, I believe that Lee, New Hampshire area, but tell us your district. Describe your district. Okay. Hmm. Wow. Hey, I didn't realize you cover Franklin. We need to hook up because after my veteran stuff and our 12 hours make 12 hours count for veterans count recently, we need to talk a little more about what's coming to Franklin for that veteran campus. It's going to be amazing. It really is. It is. So what's going on with car inspections as part of this whole budget process? Mhm. Mhm. So yeah, yeah. So right. So to sum up, Senator, it sounds like you're trying to bring a more practicality or common sense to this to avoid some of the cost and inconvenience with a newer vehicle that's safe for the first couple of years, and then after that, a reasonable period to keep some safety going. To so in the beginning, so to drive down the cost and inconvenience if you have a perfectly safe, good new vehicle, but after year three, sort of ongoing reality. And do you think this will pass and put this to bed, or right? Senator, let me just talk on some current topical events, and then another question for you. State Senator Dan Innes, and again, the district number one more time for our listeners. Okay, well, you've been involved in running for other offices, and now back in the state senate. And from what I hear, and I have known you, and I know you outside a little bit, and you have a great. I don't know if you still have a good involvement with the University of New Hampshire on the business teaching side, but you're known as a pretty good budget hawk and business person, and that's a compliment. I guess my question to you is, looking at the field of these big races right now. We have what might be or will be one of the biggest political races in New Hampshire history with that U.S. Senate seat opening up with Jeanne Shaheen, who was on my show Friday, not running. Of course, Chris Pappas is in. Chris Sununu said on my show he's not running, of course. And Scott Brown was on my show at the end of the week, and he's seriously considering it, talking to people, not ready to make it official, but by all measurements, it looks like he's running. But what do you think? Any other Republicans will jump in there for the U.S. Senate? What are your thoughts? And you're someone who's looked at some of these races, including the first congressional district on the Republican side. What are your thoughts? And any big names, or is it something you've even contemplated? Hmm. So you think a good Republican candidate has a 50-50 chance against Chris Pappas, or less than that? Oh, really? Really? All right. But but yet he maintains a pretty popular record as an incumbent in that first district. Right. What what about Dan Ennis, that first congressional district? You know it very well, formerly on the Seacoast. And right now, we know Mara Sullivan, Stephanie Shaheen was on my show, and I asked her mother Friday, Jean Shaheen. She says if Stephanie runs, she'll support her whatever she does. She thinks she'll win that primary as a Democrat from Portsmouth. But on the first congressional district side, not a lot of Republican names jumping in yet. Yeah. Well, what you brought up the Capitol, or the state house being Republican with Governor Ayotte legislature. You're in the state Senate, State Senator Dan Innes. Kelly Ayotte's in the midst, and you are too, dealing with a budget. Who knows where it's going to come in yet? And there's less federal money, which was inevitable. And we have no income or sales tax, thank goodness. But my point is that we have a budget, and Lucas Meyer, a regular contributor on my show, a Democrat, thinks that Kelly Ayotte, even though New Hampshire overall has a very good history of reelecting first-term governors, thinks that the governor could be vulnerable with that budget. And so when he says that, I said, "Where are the big name Democrats running for governor? If she's vulnerable, where are they? Who's going to run for governor against Kelly Ayotte on the Democrat side? Give me a couple names in your if you had to say." Okay. Right. Okay. I'm going to let you go ahead. Real quick, I want to ask you this one because if anyone knows, you would. Is there legislation in New Hampshire, and I don't have the wording, that basically, if an adverse nation or entity were to buy a lot of strategic real estate in New Hampshire, there'd be extra review. And let's just bring up the example of China. Is there any state law to kind of look at that or not? Are you okay? Okay, are you aware at all in Nashua? It's not your district, I don't think. No, it's not your district, but it's your district too, but not your Senate district. Are you aware at all about this? The largest Chinese water beverage company, Nongfu Spring, has spent $67 million buying a building, an industrial building in Nashua, 337,000 square feet, and not far from the Nashua Pennachuck, that water reserve that supplies Nashua's drinking water. When the Pennachuck Water Board, they're meeting. Are you aware at all? That's a pretty big purchase from one of the wealthiest business people in China, a water bottling company, to buy that Nongfu beverage company. Where will they get their water? Are you aware at all of this story in Nashua? Have you heard of this? But is this something you think should be looked into at all by someone in the state or not? All right, you're right. Thank you very much. Great newsmaker, State Senator Dan is a lot of topics. Thank you, sir. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. Hey Google, hey Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Back in a few. right, we are back on a Tuesday. I wish that, and of course, Brad Card had to rub it in that it's warm and sunny in Washington, but you know what? It will come. Interesting that interview with Dan Ennis, state senator. J-Dog, who do we have? Oh, I'm sorry, our own White House correspondent, John Decker. I don't know if our next segment was on. John's been a busy person. I've learned to kind of not bother him too much because he's running around with the president in the White House, covering just about everything. And John Decker, our own White House correspondent, joining us. And John, big day yesterday, something a lot of people may not talk about. You haven't seen this every day. Melania Trump, the first lady, signing something, talking about her concerns but that's not all you have. Good morning, John. Yeah. And again, I'm not weighing in here, but if you look at history and how some of these, ending a war or trying to bring nations together, there's a lot of levels of diplomacy. I mean, if you go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, who knows the back shuttle diplomacy going on behind the scenes between Kennedy and Khrushchev? Something always can trigger something, and hopefully, but you know what? The president saying yesterday he believes that Putin wants to end this war, that he's getting tired of this war. I think Russia and Putin are the only ones that really can end this war when they want to just pack up and go home and stop, get out and stop the war. But, the president seems to really want to broker peace here, and he's expending a lot of capital on this. But you feel, and I think I agree, that we're not any closer, but the president is certainly trying to get the optics to try and get Zelensky and Putin together with somehow the United States brokering a peace agreement. Right. Right. Yeah, I think he thinks he can do this even if they don't get together, but it's going to be something. And then even if they reach an agreement, I don't mean to bring this up, but will Putin hold his word? That's the other thing. And then how do you enforce it? How do you enforce it? Yeah. All right, John Decker, our own White House correspondent. So I was talking real quickly before the break with State Senator Dan Innes about this story out of Nashua. So he verified we don't have a law that calls for state review of questionable large, like you're seeing this in Florida. I think Florida is a leading state in this, where if another entity, a foreign entity that maybe has that, not maybe, has adverse intentions, or is not considered a friendly nation to the country, if an adverse type entity were to buy strategic land in a state, there's a higher level of review before the deal can happen. In New Hampshire, I guess we don't have that. But this story out of Nashua is bizarre to me, to say the least, that you could have the largest water bottling company in the world, or China, therefore in the world. If you want to Google this, Nongfu Spring is the company. It's owned by one of the wealthiest business people in China. A guy, I don't know his name, but Nongfu, Nongfu Spring, is supposedly, listen to this, setting up operations already in Nashua, New Hampshire, after spending, according this, we had the story on a few weeks ago, but this is also in New Hampshire Journal, $67 million on a 337,000 square foot industrial building in Nashua. The building's location is next to the Pennachuck watershed area that supplies drinking water to Nashua. And the question is, Nongfu's a water bottling company. Where are they going to get their water? Why did they buy this building? And according to some HR sites, only one or two local reporters, maybe only one or two, are looking into this. I think someone with New Hampshire Business Review is looking into this. They're already posting like positions open to work for this water bottling beverage company in Nashua, New Hampshire, owned by the largest water beverage company in China. That's a pretty big real estate transaction in New Hampshire, almost $70 million, with apparently hiring activities now underway. And no one from a statewide point of view in New Hampshire either gives a damn or is talking about it. Now, one would think, and I don't rely on the Pennachuck Waterworks, and I don't live in Nashua, New Hampshire, so I'm fortunate my water bottle's full, or my glass. So I'm not really, but this seems a little, no pun intended, fishy, to say the very least. And some new news on this story. We just had State Senator Dan Innes, a leading member of the state Senate, saying, when I asked him, he thinks the state and federal authorities should look into this in terms of what's happening in Nashua, New Hampshire. Pennachuck Water Board apparently has got a vote on this, and I don't know where it's headed, but you might be thirsty if you live in Nashua. Poll results from yesterday, J-Dog. Today we're asking you on X, the Pulse of an H. Do you think the economy is going to slow down this summer? Yes or no, J-Dog? Yeah, well, we'll see. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to talk some gold with our friends from Alpine Gold Exchange. And I want you to start thinking about opening an account with me as your referral. Jack Heath at the Alpine Gold Exchange will tell you why in just a few. And silver expected to be a great buy. Back with Adam Van in a moment. You know, you hear me talk, and one of the benefits or blessings of what I do is I bring in Adam Van with Alpine Gold. Is I have these economists and I have these people from Capitol Hill and I have these great sort of economic contributors on my show, Adam. And it really paints a picture right now of uncertainty, and I'm hearing that from business owners. And even if the trade stuff is calmed down a little bit, the real estate market, inflation. So, the ups and downs, and people's 401ks have been like a yo-yo, and the uncertainties are there. And we have a 35, $36 trillion debt. And in 7 years from now, Adam, they can't even tell me in Washington how much of the Social Security benefits are going to be paid for. People could be seeing a 20% haircut. So when I look at gold, silver, and precious metals versus all this paper stuff, I'm thinking there's something to this in terms of security and peace of mind. Adam, good morning. Well, on that note, I just think, and you made it even better in terms of the benefits of being a listener. If you go to alpinegold.com, and I'm going to come back to this in a moment, alpinegold.com, you can buy as little as you want or as much as you want, and put just a checkout. The Just put pulse, the word pulse for the pulse at checkout, pulse at checkout, and free shipping. Well, now, Adam, last Tuesday, you were in our studios, and right live while we're on the air, I was able to go to alpinegold.com. And there's, you know what I like? There's just two simple boxes in the middle of the page: buy or join. Real simple. And, kind of like maybe web challenge me while you're here and I'm doing a radio show. I filled out the two or three fields and boom, I joined a member of Alpine Gold. And no offense to these other things online, it's like you need to ask three people in your life, what do I do here? What do I put in here? I can't even figure out how to put in my birth date. I mean, this is like non invasive, very easy to do. And the nice thing is, the more I learn about Alpine Gold is you offer benefits if people have an account, including interest, with like you could have like $100 in gold or silver, and they're going to pay you some interest, not like $10,000. So it's very user customer friendly, is what I'm trying to tell you. You're also become a leader in states like Utah and Florida in terms of looking at something you can hold precious metals. And I don't know, I look at real estate, dirt in the ground, a home is real, even if housing's up and down, it's an asset. I look at precious metals as an asset. You can touch it, you can store it, you can keep it there, you can hold it, but it's not going to go anywhere. And it's there. It's real. It's thousands of years proven. And in this day and age, I some people get carried away. I've just truthfully never been a big stock person. I know people make a huge living there indirectly or directly. Never been a real paper person. I believe in our economy, but I worry about the value of the dollar. I worry about a near $36 trillion debt. So my attitude is, hedge all this a little bit. Do something that's concrete. And if it's not concrete, gold and silver are pretty darn hard and real. Right. Right. And silver and other metals. And the other thing is I just love the versatility here. And it's fun, but you know what else? It's a little bit of peace of mind, isn't it? Yeah. Yep. That's awesome. And a great story of your company and the team and the culture. Well, thank you. And don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. And sometimes I've done that in my own life. I want to try that and all that. I've been waiting. And so last week I opened the account and it feels good to look in there and see something that solid like precious metal. And you can start by opening an account with me, Jack Heath. Just go to alpinegold.com. You want to buy a little or a lot or something in the middle? Just put Pulse at checkout. Easy. You listen each morning. Your business owners out there, there's enough uncertainty into your world. Put a little certainty into it and just put Pulse at checkout, alpinegold.com. Tell them Jack sent you. Thank you so much, Adam. All right. When you come back, we're going to talk some veteran issues and how we need to do better. Interesting article. Again, Michael Graham, he's been on fire this morning. New Hampshire Journal. He did a story, posted a story, but New Hampshire, we were just ranked. Listen to this: second best, I'm sorry, second safest state to live in the country, behind. Speaking of Utah, second safest state, public safety, and that was great because it was right before our law enforcement memorial on Friday. You heard Senator Shaheen on my show and others talking about that, and the state police. New Hampshire State Police, brought to you by AutoFair. New Hampshire Journal this morning. New Hampshire has been ranked America's third best state for military veterans to move to and live in. Listen to this. And Franklin, New Hampshire is only going to make it better. New Hampshire's been named America's third best state for military veterans to live in. That's amazing, but we can do better. We need to be the most friendly state for veterans. The Franklin campus is going to help. We need to link our nonprofits with the VA and kind of fill the gaps. Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals, big part of what I do, make 12 hours count. Just recently, we were able to raise upwards of $100,000 for that great nonprofit. Good going, New Hampshire, one of the top states for veterans. Back on the Pulse of an H in a moment.